you know, people often say, you know, that, well, you do these really different kinds of things, the electronic kind of funky groove things, and then straight ahead jazz. And you go back and forth. And I do that. And people say, why? And I guess it's just because I'm lucky enough that I can, you know? I mean, I've been involved since the very beginning of playing the guitar when I wanted to learn about jazz. I wanted to learn how to play traditional jazz, and I'm a jazz fan. So I'm actually very steeped in tradition, and I love tradition and history. And I'm always learning tunes and still listen to jazz recordings and find old records that I like. I'm a real jazz fan, and really enjoy playing traditional music, and find it inspires me to play standards and this sort of thing. It's not. It can be very new for me, and I love the history of it, and I think that traditions are there because they make sense, you know, and a 32-bar song is such a beautiful form, you know, and of course you want to change it and try different things, but these forms, all these forms, exist because there's something right about them, you know, AABA or a 12-bar blues. And so I want to utilize this. At the same time, I've been in fusion since the beginning, you know. When I first got a gig to play guitar with a jazz group, it was in the early 70s when jazz groups wanted to have guitar so they could play funky jazz and they could have an audience, you know, and I played with Billy Cobham and George Duke and these guys when synthesizers were just starting and sequences and programs were just starting, and I've always been involved in that. I'm a guitar player, you know. I like rock guitar and blues, really, primarily, you know, and funk rhythms. Always been into that. I still played in those bands when I was a kid. So I've never gotten away from that, too. And to me, what's going on now with electronic groove jazz, you know, is also a tradition. And there's this thread, you know, from the 60s until now, you know, how the music's grown and the technology's come in. And I just, you know, I have so much fun playing that way, and so I do both things because I can, you know. It's funny, I mean, some people would, you know, if they heard some jazz performer playing a classical piece, they would say, oh yeah, well that makes sense. But if you do kind of these two kinds of jazz, because there's been a war between the two things, sometimes people are listening, they don't understand that, yeah. But the war is over. I love to play standards because I love the tradition of jazz, and I like to play the music of the composers and the melodies, you know, but also the forms, to improvise on the forms to make those forms subconscious and to play through those changes. It's so much music in there, and you can get it so much. Sometimes my old tunes, the changes, you know, my own tunes, sometimes the forms I realize afterwards are not so good, you know, or they're too complicated or something, because when I write a tune, you know, so I have to, but I try to make my own original tunes have forms to improvise on that are compelling, you know, like I Got Rhythm or something is compelling, or a 12-bar blues. I like the forms. That's why I like to play standards. I think that the standards that were written in the, you know, the 20s and 30s and 40s worked with this new style at that time of jazz in a way that pop songs don't work now. And that doesn't mean that the pop songs now are bad. It's just that they don't lend themselves to improvisation in the way that those other songs did. And they're not new standards in the old way. It's different. It's just different. It's not better or worse. And for people to say, well, oh, they don't write them as well as they used to. Those songs were just songs to be, they weren't for jazz, they were just songs to be sung, but the forms somehow inspired guys to play like a million choruses on them, you know. And it was just luck that that worked at that time.